Conflict. What do you think the best method to resolving conflict is? Violence. This quote from Nogi reveals the true nature of the Kengan association to Yamashita and the readers. After hundreds of chapters, maybe some have forgotten about this fact, as the Kengan battles are really about reducing the amount of violence and lives lost. No one that engages in these types of battles is clean, and so it should come as no surprise that the worms may be a part of the Kengan association and potentially even one of its oldest members. In this video, I'll be pointing out some of the connections between what we know as the worms and the Kengan association, and why this isn't just important, but a pivotal part of the story. But before we get into any of that, don't forget to like and sub if you like the video. I cover Kengan content all the time. These theory type of videos and analysis come out weekly, at least for now. So let's get on to the video. The origin of the Kengan matches started in the ancient Shotoku year 5. In that time, merchants fought over the position of shogunate purveyor. This position granted a lot of wealth and power. So naturally, the merchants started killing each other and having very intense conflicts that involved civilians and innocent people. Already we can see a huge connection between the origin of the Kengan battles to what is currently happening in the Kengan Omega manga, with the worms engaging in conflict on a global scale. Eventually, the 7th shogun proposed that rather than this intense conflict, that rather they have a far more fair battle using the strongest martial artists they have. It's no wonder that the worms' leading members seem to be martial artists rather than traditional terrorists. And with the origins of the Kengan battles understood, we can now go on to every sign that the worms have been a part of the Kengan association for a very long time. The first red flag is Hayami, also known as one of the main villains of Kengan Ashura. He was a member of the Kengan association that rebelled against Metsudo twice. We know about the second time, which was in Kengan Ashura, but the first one is shrouded in mystery, since Hayami and Metsudo seemed to be on good terms before that. What was the reason Hayami rebelled the first time? The only lead is Hayami's connections to the worms, which might run deeper than we think. We all know that Masaki is a clone. However, most people would have never really paid attention to Hayami's daughter, Kuroyoshi. Kuroyoshi has two interesting things about her. The first is the order ability, which allows her to command any male once. The second is that her character info page has no age on it, or rather, her age is unknown. This is rather odd because every woman that has a character info page has their age on it as well. The same goes for men, with the exception being Oma in Kengan Ashura. Oma not having a confirmed age is understandable. A clone is never really born, and so a date of birth just isn't something Oma or any of the clone would have. But if what I say is true, then it would mean the worms have been around since Kuroyoshi has existed, and the possibility both the worm and Kuroyoshi were involved in Hayami's first rebellion. Another hint to the worms being a part of the Kengan association is Edward Wu and the Connector. In chapter 13 of Kengan Omega, Toyota is talking to Edward about his wanting to join the Purgatory team, and that Edward would actually have an easier time joining the Kengan team. In his own words, if you want to enter the competition, wouldn't it be easier to get in touch with the Kengan association than finding me? This subtly implies that Edward might have better connections within the Kengan association, but the only reason he won't go is that he just doesn't like the Kure clan, or that he is currently in conflict with them. Later on, we get to see the Connector roam around the Kengan members and affiliates like it's natural. In the Berserker Bowl, the tournament is held only where Kengan members would know. Not only does the Connector show up, he shows up without fuss. It could be that he snuck in somehow or killed the security, but we have no evidence that such a thing happen. Shen doesn't even disguise himself, and so the most likely thing to have happened is that Shen just walked into the event. In chapter 159 of Kengan Omega, Shen even asked Yan to contact the Kengan Association for him, like it would be no big deal. Of course, Yan says no, because he doesn't want Shen to reveal his identity since he's the leader of the Worm Organization that is currently at war with the Kengan Association. This would mean that if Shen wasn't the leader of the Worms, his request to get in touch with elite members of an underground fighting organization and have them comply with his request is actually possible, as if the Kengan Association would just do what other people told them to do for some reason. Both Edward and the Connector seem to have easy access to the Kengan Association without disguising themselves. Even though Shen faked his name, that seems to be as far as he went. The final hint is Metsudo. Metsudo seems to be aware of the Connector since we saw his flashback in chapter 179 of Kengan Omega. However, in chapter 1 of Kengan Omega, not only is it confirmed that Metsudo knew about Oma's master, Togita Nico, but also Gaio Mukaku. Mukaku didn't send Ryuki to Metsudo by mistake. He knew that Metsudo would be able to put the dots together and know what to do with Ryuki. Later on, Ryuki confirms that Mukaku knew that there were worms in the Kengan Association, even though we haven't seen Mukaku interact with anyone in the Kengan Association since his disappearance. That is if we do not count the worms. The problem, however, is why does it seem that Metsudo doesn't know much about them even though he seems to have enough information, or should have enough information? I might answer that in another video, but for now, a good explanation might be that Metsudo simply might not know the worms as we know them with the worm organization that he fought back in the day. That is to say that the current worm organization that are terrorists is more than likely a shell company and not the true nature of the worms. Now that I have presented the possibility of the worms being a part of the Kengan Association, now I have to convince you on why it's not just a possibility, but certain. The Kengan Annihilation Tournament is upon us, right? How? Currently, as of 204 chapters in, it's nothing more than a rumor. In order for the Annihilation Tournament to be held, 50 Kengan Associate members need to endorse the contest for the chairman's seat. Metsudo doesn't seem to have any aspirations of overthrowing Nogi right now. Toyoda has already been beaten by Nogi once, and Hayami, who had the motivation to become the chairman, is dead. As things stand right now, it's a bunch of random Kengan Associate members who also were causing problems even when Purgatory was its own thing. Nogi theorized that someone from the association was trying to destroy it from within. We later found out that Zaiji infiltrated with his clones. But what about the dark web recordings by Medicine Man? That's one of the biggest reasons there's such chaos within the association right now. We know that Medicine Man has worked for multiple Kengan Associate members like Hayami, Yamashita's son, and Metsudo. Medicine Man seems to play every side he can. It wouldn't be no surprise that he, like many others, may have worked for the worms in the past. We are currently in a huge war between countries and the elite, with many civilians and innocent people's lives on the line. How is a conflict like that supposed to be resolved? Moreover, the best way that the Kengan series could handle this global conflict with the worm is with violence in the Annihilation Tournament. It narratively fits. In conclusion, the worms being a part of the Kengan Association isn't just a possibility, it has to be an absolute fact. To quote the narrator at the end of Kuroki's fight, an era was over. All the fighters realized that the Kengan Association was about to undergo a reformation. An age of civil war was upon them with its new king Kuroki Gensai in the center. I believe this to be true, and that currently the worms are not just some outside force to be dealt with, but one of the most important members of the Kengan Association that will bring the Kengan Age of Civil War to its peak. Thanks for watching the video. Again, don't forget to like and sub, and hey, share your thoughts on my little theory. I know I'm a little bit insistent on it, but I want to know what you guys here think of the worms actually being one of the oldest members of the Kengan Association. But besides any of that, take it easy.